Hello, everyone. Today I'm here with ENFP Nate. And for those of you who do not know, I am an ENFJ. And today we're going to be discussing once and for all the thing that the crowd has been just clamoring for. The real difference between the ENFP and the ENFJ. Those of you probably all of you are already big fans of his podcast, which I will link below. If you're not already a big fan, then what are you doing with your life?
I don't even know. You guys, seriously, the podcast, I just can't even with myself right now, is the mood that is going from right now as well. Where we just, I just can't even with this. But the topic is absolutely amazing. I don't know. I'm super thrilled that we get to have this moment. It's finally, what is this, an ENFJ versus ENFP moment?
Yeah. And on a serious note, his podcast episodes are about specifically the ones that go into the cognitive functions. I think that you add like sort of a fresh insight in a way that still very much fits with the definition of like that Carl Jung initially came about, like using the terms of like objective for the extroverted functions and subjective for the introverted functions. So, but yeah, a lot of the stuff in your podcast episodes about the functions, I find myself still thinking about and then wanting to talk about in my videos. So definitely subscribe. But anyway, so Nate, as the P that he is, wrote notes for this episode.
I did actually write notes. I don't know. I'm just gonna flash it over the camera right here. I really wrote quite a bit. Actually, before I forget, with the podcast, actually, let's just quickly add as well. It's actually very just much my babbling as an any user, which is one thing. I don't know if people are going to be prepared for that or be prepared for. At the same time, I do focus a little bit on, I'm kind of transitioned from MBTI to socionics, but I appreciate what you said about the whole connection to Jungian theory and everything. Because when you showed me a bunch of the definitions back then too, I actually did relate to some of it still. Like it's still very much relevant to today. So for that end, let's kick it in. I just wanted to add that before I forget.
Yeah. And I guess before we even go into this, I just want to say, for those of you who haven't already seen, we did do a video together before, so I'll link that. And also, I did a video with Michelle Wilson, shout out if you're watching, who's an ENFP, and we talked a little bit in that video about the difference between NFJ and NFP creative process. So sort of throwback to something I mentioned in that episode was sort of how NE users tend to have all the ideas, right? And like really you can gather any possible idea that we can talk about. Like, and so that's pretty much what you did when you jotted down all these notes. Like you used NE. So try and get out of your brain, oh, I thought J's were organized and I thought that P's were on the cuff, right? Because extroverted intuition, it's like, okay, you're going to gather all of these ideas. I don't know which one we're going to talk about. I just know that you have them, right? And like, for me, I don't really work this way. I don't really do this. I don't really need a big brainstorm session before we go into it if it's something that I know well. I just trust that my NI is going to just say the right thing.
No, I agree. It's another big thing that I want to bring up too how awesome it is that it's you and I that's going to have this discussion, because I remember vaguely you told us that you actually test a lot as a P, like during a kind of, like, let's say dichotomy test, like you always score P. Whereas for me, I always score TJ. Always. Like I've never had, like, it's barely like a 1%, or maybe let's be a little generous, like 5%, where I've been an ENTP or result for the testing, but I'm almost always like ESTJ, ENTJ, like INTJ, and I'm just kind of like, what?
You know what's really interesting is that on like big 5 tests, if you ever take one that goes into all the different facets, like conscientiousness, for me, the facets that are about like, how by the book are you? How strict to a schedule are you? I'm saying absolutely not. But then when it asks like, how goal-oriented are you? Do you follow through on what you say? Yes, absolutely. So it's interesting because whenever you break it down into the facets, it's very clear that I'm very conscientious in this way, and I'm very not conscientious in this way. And I think that a lot of the dichotomy tests are sort of influenced by the Big Five. I'm pretty sure 16 personalities like is explicitly influenced by the Big Five. Like, and so a lot of the questions for J and P, I personally think they don't really align with NI as much. A lot of them seem very SI, but yeah, I don't know.
No, I totally agree. It's funny that you mentioned the conscientiousness thing because I would be your opposite, actually. I actually score high on keeping with the schedule. I value keeping a routine because I suck at it. But at the same time, because I suck at it, I know I need to work on it. And that's where I thrive when I put that as a priority. I don't know, people have mentioned it as like taking care of your SI needs first, which is kind of how I've done with a lot of things. Like, for example, like with my little notes thing here, like we have a lot of ideas with any. I'm just never going to stop having all these ideas. We're still going to be mobile with everything around us anyway. But at the end of the day, I can't make a difference unless I do something about those, and I have to hone in and like ground them. But I don't ground them via NI. Like I don't like focus on one and like figure out how it somehow connects with everything and becomes this whole singularity masterpiece. It's still a mess, but at least it's a process that's more or less more organized and chunked for me to digest. Because I don't digest it via NI. It's such a foreign alien thing for me. Also alien.
Yeah, actually, before we go into some of your notes, would you mind if I sort of defined the functions briefly, or like just reminded everyone what these things are?
Oh, I don't mind at all. Yeah, let's do it.
Just in case you didn't know. So the ENFJ, which by the way, if you want to be typed by me, that is linked below.
Yes.
But I'm not like trying to discount Socionics or Myers-Briggs like when saying this, because this is just whatever. But I personally, and the system or like the definitions that I created, I call ENFJ the ideologist, and I call ENFP the imaginator, which is not a real word, but seemed to fit.
I'll take it over Inspirer any day, to be honest.
Yeah.
We'll take anything other than Inspire. Like, what is that?
To me, NE just is imagination. It is what could be, you know, it is looking at something and almost shutting your eyes to the physical reality and imagining a new one. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so for those who don't know, extroverted feeling, so ENFJ, their dominant function is extroverted feeling, which is objective values and ethical statements. Mm-hmm. And then their second function is introverted intuition, which is subjective abstract concepts. These are just like quick ways to remember it. I know a lot of you listening probably already know what these functions are or have looked them up. So with extroverted feeling and introverted intuition, that is completely opposite to how for the ENFP, it is extroverted intuition, which is objective abstract concepts. And then introverted feeling, which is subjective value and ethical statements. So those are just sort of quick definitions that I use that's based on, you know, Carl Jung and Socionics and Myers-Briggs. And I'll have that linked below as well, like the function stacks that we're talking about in this episode. Because I guess I'm sort of realizing now that there's probably going to be a lot of people here that found this video and they just tested and they aren't sure like which one. So sorry if we're confusing you and going into a bunch of other stuff.
I do want to add though, based on, you know, the understanding of like the systems and the personalities, there was actually something interesting to point out that no matter what system you're using, the way this video is going to turn out is that even if we're talking MBTI and like you're coming from, like let's say the Jungian background, and then I'm coming from influence from socionics. There's still a main difference between ENFP and ENFJ.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what system you're using, it shouldn't have to be this hard to figure out which one is which, but it is. Right?
I do personally think that with tests that test based on the dichotomy, it is going to be so much easier to mistype as one or the other. And I have met so many ENFJs in my life that were friends of mine, and I know for a fact they were ENFJs because of how we interacted and also how they viewed my best friend who's an ENFP, how they reacted to me versus her. It's very clear that, I swear to God, that they're ENFPs, but they're the people that they just took the 16 personalities test once and then they just didn't look at it ever again. And
yeah,
I don't think that Myers-Briggs is wrong, and I don't think that some of these websites or influencers that are sharing things based on the dichotomies are wrong. But I do think that when you are just testing, it is going to be so much easier to test incorrectly compared to, like, in socionics, like the EIE versus the IEE, right?
Yeah.
So the actual reading the socionics descriptions, these are like completely different people. And you really see that in socionics.
I have to add too that because, like, I manage a server myself, and like I've noticed that
link below, by the way.
Yeah, nice. But I also have noticed that people actually make the mistake of like relying too much on descriptions. So like let's say you look at a profile of an IEE, or you see a profile of an EIE, and you read it and you start assuming, hey, so this is what they do, therefore I must be doing that too. That's like the fundamental basic mistake people make, is when you try to fit yourself into the profile, you need to really understand first the foundation of the type as well as the functions before you actually go forth and start relating to anything. Typing by relating to anything really is already kind of a basic mistake that you should avoid at all costs. Yeah, we've all been there. We've all done it.
Because anybody can do anything, but it's how you do it and why you do it. And when you actually look at the cognitive functions that you're using and the order of it, it makes it super clear, like, what is driving you.
No one has a monopoly on any of these like behaviors.
Yes.
Everyone is still very capable of doing all those things.
There's so many things that I relate to about ENFPs, and like that, you know, things we have in common or things I have in common with other ENFPs. Or it's like us being similar. It's like, yeah, we're extroverts, we're intuitive, we're feelers, and you're going to see that. You're going to see that similarity.
Yeah, no, I agree. We're also like passionate, big idea people. Like that's still a thing. Like in ENF, like let's say you didn't even factor the J or the P, like we're still actually going to be focused on the big idea of anything, regardless. Yeah. Yeah,
and I think the dangerous thing about a lot of the mistypes that happen with this stuff, and I know Nate and I both care about this because we talked about this, is that when there starts to be advice geared toward a certain type and people are mistyped, it might not actually be the best advice for them. Like, if an ENFP thinks they're an ENFJ or vice versa, like the path to growth is going to be opposite. And so we might end up looking like each other. But what I found, especially with these two types, is that a behavior that might be really harmful and detrimental to one type might actually be really challenging and help someone grow than the other on the other end.
Oh, I agree, because it's like there's going to be problematic. It'll be troublesome, basically. Like let's say you're an ENFP, but you're actually an ENFJ or something like that. Let's just say throw that idea out for a second there. The advice that could be applied to you if you were actually typed correctly would be a lot more beneficial and a lot more applicable for your life. I mean, ENFJs are normally more practical by nature anyway, so to be told an ENFP advice is probably the opposite that's actually going to help you. Like, you're actually going to be less geared towards your personal growth than anything else. Which kind of sucks, because the whole point of, at least how I believe like type is and how type should be, is to gear you towards be aware of the flaws that you have. But what if those aren't even your flaws?
Yes.
Because it's not even your type, so you're not even sharing.
Yeah, like for example, like my best friend Crystal, you guys might know her in my Synchronic Saturdays podcast. She told me once, like I was busy, like on my bullshit, crying about what people think about me or something. And she just looked at me and she's like, Megan, you never need to worry about being too bitchy. It's just not going to happen for you. You just aren't that sort of person. She's like, if you just let yourself be a little bit of a bitch or whatever you're afraid of looking like, just a little bit, I guarantee you're going to be a lot happier and people are going to like you a lot more. I mean, like, I sort of realized, like, that's because for me, extroverted feeling, not that extroverted feeling can't be bitchy, but like the way that I'm so overinflated and so so attached to this sort of persona, it makes me neglect introverted thinking. It makes me neglect my personal discernment, and it makes me put everyone's opinions above my own because I want to be nice and all that. And I'm so afraid of not being that. It's like I have to pull a little bit off of that just to regain normalcy. Mm-hmm. And if you were to tell like an ENFP to meet your own needs, is that really going to help you like the same way?
No. Coming from a selfish person such as myself, I'm already meeting my own needs. Thank you very much. I'm already taking care of that. I'm already fixated on it. It's funny because, like with me, my growth actually was to learn how to be more considerate, learn how to listen, learn how to like be quiet and let the ideas flow out of someone else this time. And it was kind of funny because I didn't realize how important that was. Because for me, like the goal of an ENFP is just, just become like an idea kind of amalgamation of everything. But we can't do that if we're only the ones talking. Like it's a growth thing where we actually have to have a conversation. You got to stop and, let you talk and let me talk. Then we can actually get what we really want, which is the growth, the idea, the things that we're charged by.
ENFP seem to really like to use people as sort of just like whiteboards or like just what's the term? Just like, oh, can I just bounce off of you for a little? Like it's almost like you don't even care if the person's gonna respond. You're just like.
I had to apologize, like as a more like a disclaimer before I do this to like I usually do it to introverts a lot because it's so much more fun. But but like I like them because they process whatever I throw at them and they give it back to me the way I need it. And need is really important in that term because I actually do need it to live. Like I need it to get energy. If I don't get it, I get like, I guess my mood, like gets lower, I get more unhappy or something. So I know how it comes off to other people. Like it could be a little weird, like to say it'll be uncomfortable just asking them for stuff. But like the whole point of it is being able to just pull an idea from a person. We need to react, therefore I need these people. So
yeah, and I mean there's nothing wrong with doing that. It's just super different than how an ENFJ
I don't see ENFJ. I feel like an ENFJ would just ask. But then like you guys ask and then you think afterwards because your energy is directed inwards. Like it's
well every time that I've sort of wanted to vent about myself, I either was wanting a response, or if I could tell that I was rambling, I'll probably just be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I'm rambling, or I would say, I just need to vent. Like, I would need to say that out loud. Like, my intention.
I used to not even care about the warning that I should I should stop.
Then, okay, on the other hand, I have been trying out moping and sitting in my feelings, which is not good advice probably for an ENFP necessarily. But I think if you were an ENFJ, I might recommend moping. Just try it once. Just see how it feels. And hey, and if you are an ENFJ watching this, moping is not the same thing as worrying and overthinking. Don't do that. You don't need any more of that. You can mope and sort of mourn.
Grieve.
Just try it. Like,
I do have a question to that. Is it because you guys consider that act, like the behavior of like the moping concept, is that because it's like sort of too vulnerable, too kind of weak?
And kind of a waste of time.
There we go. Yeah.
It's that FI ignoring in socionics. It's like, why would I bother doing this?
Which is I have to say it's actually kind of funny because like it's already hard enough for me to like focus on the dark side, but sometimes I actually have to self-induce moping for me, so that I can actually be fine. Because like for us, to get back on our state of stability, because we're usually within us, we tend to be kind of emotionally chaotic. For us to get rid of that, we only have a finite amount of feelings we can actually take. Like I usually like to tell people I don't have enough empathy for everybody. It's very I have to very process it. I have to be picky, or else I will just burn out. So sometimes if I'm taking too much chaos, and emotional chaos that is, it's costly. It costs me my energy. So I need to cry it out first or something to get back on my middle, and then I'm fine again afterwards. But
that's
if I
very
don't,
FI.
it's like so much problems if I don't do that.
That's very FI, and Crystal calls it, like, she says, I'm emotionally constipated.
Oh, are clogged.
yeah, seriously. I feel like FI gets like that, though.
We just need proper plumbing, basically. We just don't really have the ways to get rid of it. Like FE is easy in this case, like for you guys, like it's just when you guys feel it, you say it, and then it's done, out of sight, mind, because it's out of you. But for us, it's like festers, like it rots inside of us.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, another big thing actually kind of by a side effect of our being like festering inside, we actually have a tendency as ENFPs to hold on to grudges more. Like I don't think I've ever met an ENFJ who actually holds on to grudges. Like I don't think you guys even do that. Or like maybe you do, but you're just kind of like, well, you like process it with TI, and then you just like,
I don't. But what might be related to FE in this is that every time I make a decision, I ask myself how I'm going to feel later, and I'm always making the decision that's going to make me feel the best later. And so I'm pretty much always making decisions that I know I'm not going to regret. So I don't know if that has something to do with it. Or like, I don't know. I'm sure NFJs, I'm sure some NFJs regret things because that'd be crazy. But in general, we don't like to look back, and we can make a general assessment of if taking this action or this action is going to yield a better result, as opposed to like, what do I feel like doing right now? It's more like, for example, like I have like a client that I'm doing social media for, and I set a meeting with her. And then right after that, my sister was like, hey, you and your cousin, like we're doing an impromptu trip to Six Flags this day.
Yes.
And, I realized I already set that meeting, and I was like trying to think about what I wanted to do. And I realized that I had to just face my fear and ask if I could reschedule the meeting, because I knew that I would regret not going like to Six Flags, even though my FI sort of fear in the moment was if she was going to be mad at me, or if I was going to disappoint my client, or like something like that. But it ended up happening that they just picked another day anyway, so I didn't even have to change anyway. But like I was thinking about it in this way where I was like, well, I would feel terrible FOMO if I was not there. Like, and that's just the bottom line.
I do have to like say, like, it's that idea of implication that is so present in ENFJs. Like, you guys,
what do you mean?
Well, I feel like you guys know that your words have power, that your words have an effect on people. And the thing is, it's not that you yourself, like as a person, as a concept, has this all as like a one-sided thing. It works both ways. You guys are also reactive to how people choose their words as well towards you.
Yeah.
It's still it's still like a two-way street type of situation. Whereas for ENFPs, like we actually don't really care for the implication of words. Sometimes for us, we care about the result, if that makes sense. Like even if we're Ps, we still are gonna say things, we don't really think it through because we need to just get it out of our mouths right away. So we'll always say maybe the wrong thing, but our intentions will always be right, but it would never really come out as accurate as we would want it to be. So it becomes less of like, and I don't know if other NFPs will relate to this or probably would, or if not, hello, wake up call. You need to think about the implication of your words, because if you don't say it the right way to a person, it could make or break a fight. Like, let's say you're in a relationship, it could make or break like a situation, because a person could perceive what you said incorrectly because your intention wasn't mixed with your words. You just loosely said it. And I know ENFJs, they don't do that. Like, they sound powerful with their words because they know what they're saying. They don't express the words first. It's thought first and then words.
And then FPs can sometimes get a little unapologetic if you call them out on that, because then they'll be like, but I had a good intention, like, didn't you see?
It's like, but I didn't mean it. Like, okay. But you still hurt a person. You still cause a friction in the fabric of space and time. You got to do something about it. And
normally I just forgive them because I know they didn't mean to.
You're too nice. You're kind. I'm so much harder on my fellow FPs. Like, I really am.
Really?
We need to get on that track right away. I feel like FJs will eventually just loosen up, but I feel like FPs need to tighten up, and we don't. So it's kind of, yeah,
I definitely need to loosen up. And see, that's the thing is, like, even though I would test as being P, I think a lot of that too is like, I'm very high in openness on the big five. And like, I don't know if they mix that or not, but like a lot of it is like, would you rather be adaptable or go by the book? And I'm like, adaptable.
Like, you really don't have a choice sometimes.
I'm not. And so I think that in those questions, they aren't hinting at if you're using any or ni. Like, it's just inaccurate in my opinion. But like, if I really think about it, I'm very high strung. Like, I'm very high strung, and I'm very serious about everything I do. Like, even though I'm playful, and like fun sometimes, I'm also just very like highly tightly wound. I don't know how to explain that. But
well, actually, I have something to add to that, because because I feel like ENFJs with dominant FE, you guys are actually open. Like, your hearts are more open. Like, I don't think people understand with like NFPs just in general. Like, we're actually way more discriminatory than we actually let ourselves out to appear like. Like, we actually are way more picky, and I think people mistake NE as the ultimate open-minded function. Sure, but we're also very obstinate. Like, we're very stubborn. We don't like listening to other people. It's like one of our major things we actually have to fix when we're younger, because if we don't, it doesn't work out for us. Like, it actually hinders our growth. So when I hear like the whole, you're actually more open-minded, you're more open-ended, adaptable, whatever, like, that's actually very much true. It's funny because, like, I guess for us NFPs, like, when things go down and things get stressful, we don't push ourselves. We'd rather kind of retreat into our abstract world that we live in. And NFJs don't do that. At least ENFJs don't.
Yeah.
Like, we literally kind of retreat, and we're like, yeah, like it. I prefer this to remain an idea, and I'm happy that it was. I'm afraid if it gets anything else other than that. Like, our impact is like,
I just had an intense reaction to you saying, I prefer it remain an idea. I don't want anything to remain an idea. If it's a good idea, it should happen, and I will make it happen.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's so much as we have a difficulty knowing which is a good idea or not. We just spit ideas. Because we're not picky by ideas. We're picky by, like, our feelings. So
do you relate to the feeling of ENFPs being afraid to commit to one idea over another? Is that relate to how you feel?
Actually, yes. It's hard to commit to an idea because there's more. NE is not convergent in nature at all. Like, we're divergent, right? So it's like, we're gonna always be, man, that's a lot of really stupid English words I just added there that made no actual coherent sense. We are always going to seek out more. Like, one idea isn't enough. We don't look at it as honing in focus on anything. Our focus is always to zoom out. We can't really, like, we don't process it that way. The only way we're going to process anything to manifest onto reality has to be via our next extroverted function, which is TE. Which isn't even SE, which is already kind of sucky, because SE is probably going to be, already has like a good handle on the ideas too. For me to add actually quickly on that, like, remember how we've tried to like dispel stereotypes on the SPs where their SE doesn't make them stupid. It just, they're more attuned to the physicality of surroundings, but people don't really understand what that actually means. The thing is I've spoken to ISFPs and ESTPs and everything. They're actually very eager to hear abstract ideas. But like you said, with you as having SE also as in a valued stack, you also value an idea when you can actually make it happen. It's like the major difference between like NE and SE. If like SEs are gonna use it, they're only gonna listen to it if they can actually use that idea. NEs are like, well, we can relax about it. It's just an idea.
Also, SE DOMs, like, they will act on an idea even if it's not fully formed. The way that NJs will want the idea to be fully formed, and then we make it happen. Like, I like sit on a business idea for 2 years and then I do it or something. Like, SPs, they're like, that sounds like a cool idea. Let's go for it. And they know that they're going to learn through the experience. Like, they actually learn through the experience. And if it doesn't work, who cares? There's more ideas where that came from. Like, similar to how you as an EP, like, you're afraid to commit to one because there's more. Well, SE DOMs aren't afraid to go for it because if they fail, there's more. Like, it's a similar idea, but their action's super different.
Oh yeah, it's funny because the only thing I would say I relate to with SE users is our love of chaos, but at the same time, like, everything else is very different. I actually don't even see myself relating at all to ESFPs, other than the fact that we share like our middle two functions, like our FI and our TE. But still, like, there's such an obvious difference between us, even in attitude towards life. It's still different. And like, even as me, like, I'm an aggressive ENFP. Like, I like to be there, I like to put myself out there, and I like to get what I want and all that stuff. And I'm very clear when I want to say that. But there's still a hesitation that comes from me, and that's because of my NE. Like, I still have to, there's like, mine is always, no, I gotta, go back into NE land. Like, that's where I come from. Now, I don't come from like, SE land. I don't even have SE. Mine is SI. It's not even about that. So it's so funny seeing, actually, it's such a really good example of why some descriptions, or if you go by certain dichotomy descriptions, it can cause more harm than like good.
Yeah, because like, anybody means any harm.
No, nobody really means harm. But it's like, imagine trying to decipher if you were ESFP versus ENFP, thinking that it's just a switch of N versus S, and it's not.
Exactly. And in the archetypes, so pretty much I just gave all the 16 types a name, and I haven't talked about it much on my channel yet, but I actually call ESFPs the catalyst, because I actually think it's ESFPs that really spark people a lot more than ENFPs.
Oh, like, they're so pushy. Like,
people always, ENFPs will like accidentally inspire. We were sort of talking about this.
Yes.
Like, ENFPs are like, I'm going to go into this room and inspire this group. Like, I don't know.
No, the great thing about that is what you mentioned, like, the whole I'm going to is the NE of us. Like for me, it'd be like, oh, I'm going to present everything that I want to present, and it's all going to work out. But an ESFP is just going to walk in and just do it. Like, they are there inspiring people. Like, they're probably the more motivational coaches. Some of them could be even. An ENFP is probably going to be like, well, I have dreams. I have goals. I got things happening for me.
And here's the important part here is that ENFPs are very inspiring people, and they have so much potential, so creative. But if we can't really address what is holding the ENFP back, then how are they going to get there to be that person that we all need, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And if we just act as though ENFPs already are a lot of those people, or like, I see in general, there's so many celebrities that I believe are ENFJs that are typed as ENFPs because they're super inspiring.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Lord have mercy.
how do we help identify what actually holds an ENFP back from inspiring or from actually making one of their goals happen? Because, okay, we can probably segue to your notes here, because you say that ENFPs are terrible at following through, but they're really good at starting multiple projects. And ENFJs are very disorganized throughout their projects. However, they will follow through on the projects that they have started, which I agree with this.
Yeah. There's also that interesting thing when you prompted that question of like, how do you differentiate like how an ENFP kind of like what stops us? I think it's because our energies aren't predisposed to that anyway. The energy is always going to go inwards with our FI, and I think that's something I think it's like a misnomer to assume that we are intentionally trying to inspire people. And for any ENFPs out there, I don't know if you've realized how hard it is to actually motivate people to do things for you. It's actually a lot harder for us than we think. For us, it's always like we walk into a room, we're like, hey, let's go out. But you almost find yourself having to go along with them to watch how they do it, because you can't just motivate them and then leave them be so that they can do it themselves. You almost have to really pay close attention or keep a close eye on that person, because it's that hard. I look at ENFJs, it's so easy for them. They can like say something and be like, this is what you need to do. And they present the steps and everything. I can do the same thing. I'll be like, yeah, this is what you need to do. And like, do they do it? No. I always have to be like, okay, well, how about I list this out for you? Does it make it easier for you? Or what is it? Where like, I'm looking at it from a completely different angle. And it's not the most effective angle, at least for their pathway or anything.
Yeah, and I'm realizing that it's very almost biased of my SE to even assume. Like when I'm talking about the ENFPs, I'm like, oh, how are you guys going to complete your goal? How could we make sure that that happens for more of you? And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, maybe it's not that big of a deal if it doesn't happen for you, or it's almost like it's hard for me to think about what it's like to really not value SE, like, because maybe you don't need to make it a reality. I don't know.
Yeah, it really isn't like a desperate need, like we have to, like we must make it a reality. It's,
for me, it really does feel that way.
Yeah, we can't. It's any land. Like what doesn't work, we are safe because of the comforts of our NE land. We can always just pull a different one and then babble about that instead. And that's probably way more fun or better than...
Well, that's what I found, that a lot of NE users really like fiction, or just like putting themselves in another world, because there's like no risk there.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's why they gravitate towards like story creation. Like I myself, it's actually really easy for me to create pocket dimension, like literal kind of stories, like universes. Like I can make it quickly. Like I could, let's say right now we could be discussing and we're like, oh, well, let's imagine ourselves as like, you're this person, that person. I'm like, okay, so what are your skills? What are your this? The entire time.
I get so put on the spot.
Yeah. And like, as we're talking, I'm already building that universe in my mind. And I could probably present it on a piece of paper and be like, so this is my first draft.
Like, I do not know how to do that. I mean, not saying that no NFJs could do that. If they really like, if an NFJ has a true love of writing and they got really good at it, yeah, they can do that. But the real thing to look at with introverted intuition is that I'm not just going to apply my intuition to everything. Like for me, like I'd rather be an expert in certain things And like, I'm not a creative writer. Like, I'm not going to just like pretend like I can do that when I know it's not going to be like high quality.
Well, because your ideas are inward focused, right? With NI.
Yeah.
So like it's actually one of those interesting differences between us is that my ideas are always being pushed out of me, like, or reacting and being like all over the place, or either I'm pulling from like random areas. It's just why my eyes are always darting everywhere, because I'm reacting to every potential possibility that's like popping in my immediate surrounding, versus like an NI user who won't, because for them it's like a gravity thing, you know, like they absorb it, but it's going like it's inward. It's never supposed to come out like in a way that's like this.
Well, I do digital media strategy, and so if you were to come to me and say I need some ideas for how to help my business make find more customers online or something, I would have lots of ideas for them. And you would think, oh, are you using NE or something because you're so, I don't know. It's almost like I'm an endless well of ideas. Like, that's because I'm an expert in that. Like, it's like, I can do that for you. I understand that. Yes. It's like, oh, I understand what you're looking for. But like, if I don't have like a goal, like I absolutely hate icebreaker games. Oh. You would think that an ENFJ, by reading the description, you might think that they would like them, but almost every ENFJ I've talked to does not like them because it seems so fake and forced, and it makes you be like, okay, what's your favorite color? I'm like, oh God, I don't know. like
we're supposed to feel so much more comfortable with each other now that we know your favorite color.
But also, I don't know my preferences. Like, it forces you to come up with your FI and just pretty much share a bulleted list of your FI. And I'm like, oh, great. I don't know fun facts about me.
like why don't you ask my friends first so we can give a better idea?
Well, I'm just like, oh no, they're all going to judge me because the fun fact I chose wasn't random enough or something.
You know what's funny? I do want to add this because you mentioned the icebreaker thing. Like, as an ENFP, I feel like people assume we're all great at like improv or something. We're not. I actually am terrible at improv. When someone's like, okay, we have a prompt, and then go for it.
I like improv.
The any paralysis where I'm just like, you know, I stick and I'm like, but there's like way too many things to come out of that prompt. Like, let's say a dying mom or something, or like a dying goat, right? I'm busy creating the universe in my head of a dying goat, and everyone's already acting it out and making it funny. And then the minute I start talking, I may not always convey the exact same mood that I'm imagining in my head. So like, it doesn't come out the way I intend it to. Therefore, people don't laugh. So it becomes like this, woo. So I'm kind of like, yeah, let's not do improv.
I think that the NFPs that are good at improv, which I do think that there definitely are some, they're the type that become really good, and they just sort of go on stage and create the universe, and then all the NI users sort of follow, and they know, like, this person's good. Like, you know what?
We're just not going to think about it. We're just going to let it out and just go, go, go.
There's a couple. So I did improv in college. There were two people that were both INFPs that were like the star of it, where they would just say the weirdest shit. And it was so funny that everybody was happy to go along with it, like, and sort of let them lead the ideas, like story creation.
I have to say, like, this is a shout out to all the any auxiliary people out there. Like, how they wield, and I say wield because to them it's a weapon. How they wield any is very beautiful. It's almost like art. Like, I've mentioned this to INTPs, I've mentioned this to INFPs, each of them individually. I think when they wield any, they can pull out probably more out of it than what I usually can think I can. But because with me being any dom, this is just my air, like this is just how I live, so it's really hard for me to like kind of be conscious, and to be conscious of it, because it is relatively unconscious at this point. Like ever since I could remember, I'm already using any. Like, let's say with you as an FE, compare yourself to an INFJ or an ISFJ and how they use and wield FE. You're kind of like, really? Like,
I just have to say, INFJs are really amazing at coming up with convincing excuses that make it look like they're being for real and make you feel really validated. They're good at using FE to pretty much smooth over a situation.
Even though, like, I remember talking to another ENFJ about this, and I couldn't stop. Like, shout out to Kat. Like, the harshest truth you could tell to an INJ is that they're the wisest people you've ever met, but they're also the clumsiest people you've ever met.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because, like, inferior SE is so bad. Like, it's hard. Like, they're gonna be better at SE than I am, basically. Well, arguably, because they're focused on it. Mm-hmm. But, like, they'll just bump into things, they'll do something, they'll get into really bad situations and be like, oh no. But then when you ask them about some wisdom, they just got it. You know, they just know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, so how about, would you like to take me through your list?
Oh, yeah. Sure. Would you like to go through the TE of this beauty?
Yeah, you take me through and then I will comment on each one, or if there are any, we can just sort of make sure we at least cover everything that you wrote.
Okay, well, at least this was like a byproduct of just letting loose with my NE, because you asked me for, like, remember we were having that conversation, we're like, oh, can you provide a list of what you think are the differences? And I'm just like, all right, and then we start vomiting all this NE. Mm-hmm. I think one thing that really, like, popped up to me is when I mentioned, like, under the ENFJ thing, where you guys are actually, like, known to be more disorganized kind of thing, but you guys always kind of follow through. I think people kind of assume just because you're J that, like, your rooms are going to be spotless and clean all the time, and then you care about chores and, like, all this stuff.
Nope.
Going, no, because for them it's like, if it's the goal, like, fits in with that, then yes, they will be spotless. But if it's not, then they could care less about, I mean, we're still intuitives, right? You're not going to care about the mundane details of life if it doesn't contribute to a bigger idea.
Yeah.
And then the next thing that hit me was how you guys speak is that's like one of the biggest telltales, yeah, between an ENFP and an ENFJ. You guys you like to lace your words with your feelings. You like to lace your words with emotions. Yeah, like, be like, oh, whenever I want this person to feel a certain way because of what I'm saying, I'm gonna get progressively more and more, like, I'll apply the emotion that's appropriate for it, and then they're gonna get it. And you usually do, because you guys know exactly what buttons to push.
And, you know, it's funny, I almost feel like it's a TP that would, like, think through, like, what emotion should I use, or maybe IFJs. But, like, for me, I don't even know that I'm doing it, really. Just go for it,
like, bam.
I mean, to me, it's just expressing how I feel.
This is why I think a lot of ESFJs are actually comedians in
the
major.
Wait, ESFJs?
ESFJs, actually.
I have wondered if Adam Sandler was an ESFJ.
Because people have really bad, like, takes on ESFJs. Like, I feel like people hate on them too much in the type community, not realizing that the person you're really good friends with, or the person you meet at the grocery store, or the person you sat beside with on the bus that's super, super funny was an ESFJ. Like, but they are. Like, I don't know. Like, like, that's the suckiest part about the stereotyping. Like, if you lose out on the great kind of gift that an ESFJ can actually give you. I mean, using them just as a prime example.
ESFJs can be really hilarious. Like,
but your sister's one, right?
Yeah, she's hilarious.
My best friend's an ESFJ, and, like, there's never a time in our lives where it's just never funny. Like, it'll just there's just a constant going.
I actually made a video once where I said ESFJs can be really witty, and just about how when they get, like, in the zone, when they're just, like, vibing with someone, they can be extremely clever and, like, funny. Mm-hmm. And they, like, use their NE pretty much to make you laugh or to make you happy.
Oh, it's so much fun watching Trisha and be flexed out, and they're like, look at these ideas, and I'm kind of like, okay, like, I like it. I like what you're putting down. I have to say, though, with the big thing with ENFJs, though, by lacing your words with emotions, you guys do achieve that inspirator type of personality. Because you guys are motivators by default, by that kind of logic, right? Like, you guys are going to end up basically telling people to get on their feet and move. you know, like, and the thing is, and people do. I think the biggest part of you guys is also the result that you guys get out of it, but you probably don't even think of it that way. Like, you probably don't even see or care about the result of it. But you want people to rile, if you want to rile them up, incite them to, I wouldn't say riot, but you incite them to love, like to work together, or like to work towards something, right? Like, always to.
Yeah, and it's like, I know how hard I am on myself. If I have an idea that I want to do, I want to be encouraged by others, because I know how terrible it feels to have an idea that I'm not doing, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's why, like, so my thing with ENFPs, I have a lot of really close friends who are ENFPs, but at worst, like, the biggest sort of criticism I can have, or like the thing that annoys me sometimes, is I feel like, from my perspective, it can seem like ENFPs have so much potential and they don't do anything with it. And it makes me sad, because I feel like the world needs that. And if you guys can get out of your heads for 1 second, you can realize that just a little bit of effort can literally change the world. And sometimes I feel like jealous of, like, well, I don't have any of that skill of like NEFI. And it's like, if I had that, I'd be famous by now or something. Like, I look at like my friend Crystal sometimes, I'm like, if I just was in control of your body for like 1 day, your life would be different. Like, you would be, well, and I know that's like not true, but like sometimes it just looks like, from my perspective, that NFPs, you have all the tools you need, yet you aren't using them to get somewhere. And it makes me just want to tear my hair out, but because I just see the value in it. But then I also, it's like, I don't have that, like, I don't know, like, I don't have like NEFI that I can use in the same way.
We maximize our potentials really easily because of our NE, but we lack the drive, like you said, to achieve it. And another thing that makes it difficult is our function stacking. While we can maximize our potentials, we're not actually equipped to produce results, in a sense. It takes us time. I remember talking to a TP actually about this, and I would argue that we're kind of like, we're better in time. Like, we have to go through time. We don't just become better. It takes a lot of work, because we actually have to get to that point where we are manifesting ourselves onto reality with no fear of ever having to retreat to any land or anything. It's gonna take a while. Like, I remembered feeling so validated by a 40 or 50-year-old ENFP who told us, yeah, life's hard, but you'll get to a point where it becomes more comforting and becomes less taxing on you. And it is. I remember telling you about it. Like, we suffer from like what sociologists call like clipped wing syndrome. Like, lost in all these ideas, but we don't know how to like make, like, we can't help but fall flat on our faces whenever we try.
I feel like, I just want to say, I'm probably projecting my own experience onto what I just said, in the sense that you guys seem to be more able to have fun and enjoy the process, even if you don't like maximize or like meet your goal. I think a lot of times, like, that drive, like ENJs in particular, I think ENFJs and ENTJs are like extremely entrepreneurial. They tend to be, they really want to like forge their own path. And ENJs, it's like, without SI, like SI polar, it's like no focus on comfort at all. We can sort of smash through a brick wall in order to get to where we want. It's like, I have an idea, right? And I want to make it work. So I use tertiary SE to just go through the brick wall. And like, if I can't get through the brick wall, then I beat myself up so much that like, I think that the perspective that ENFPs have is a lot like more carefree and okay with the process and okay with the journey, to where it's almost like I'm projecting my own feelings whenever I talk about ENFPs in the way that I just was, in the sense that you don't need to achieve something. You don't need to like ENFPs are good at like, oh, I just like drawing. Like, you don't need to make an Etsy shop and shit and sell it. You just like drawing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Well, another thing that was actually really interesting when you mentioned that, because SE is force, basically. You really are shaping reality to your will. Like, of course, we see it with ESFPs, we see it with ESTPs, ENTJs, like y'all can do it. I mean, heck, the ISTXPs also can do it quite well, if not very well. But because of how NE does, and we seek alternatives, potentials, possibilities, if there's a wall in front of us, we don't punch it. We like look around and see if there's an alternative.
Yeah, like, and you guys are clever that way because you don't always need to. Like my mom,
we don't always need to. What if it's just a paper wall, but we just don't even want to do it?
Like my ESFJ mom, who uses SI and NE, she has told me my whole life that I make things difficult on myself. She'll almost like see me trying to go through the wall. She's like, why are you banging your head into this thing?
Like just get out, like walk around or something.
Just walk around it. Like, yeah.
But it's actually kind of okay. I want to mention how to, like, this is like a big difference in how we talk as well. ENFPs, we lace our words with metaphors a lot. Like, again, I'm using the word like because I'm constantly comparing two dissimilar things all the time.
Yeah, when you said, what if it's a paper wall? That's very NE.
Yes. And it's a big sign that you must be an NE valuer or something when you're using a metaphor to explain something. Our TI is so bad. Like, my TI is like, at least people have told me that my TI somewhat is kind of better because I can follow a TI process a little bit, I guess, to some extent. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to value TI the same way as an ENFJ will, right? And what ends up happening is, because I don't always have the right words, it's always going to come off like this. Like I'm trying to make up like a bunch and I'm breaking rules. Joey, the INFP, actually has, like, a good friend of mine, has actually said that I use English weird. Like I utilize the English language weirdly.
What? What does that even mean?
Because I break all the rules. Like I don't care. I just compare everything to anything and hopefully it all makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that ENFJs, younger ones that are less developed, they still like aren't going to be very clear or concise when they're talking. ENFJs in general are very long-winded. But I do think that we all care about precise language. In fact, I was going to say earlier that after like several years of thinking, I've realized that some words that really do describe me, some words that really describe me more than anything, which I think is sort of related to NI, is that I think I'm wise and I think that I'm strong-willed. And I think both of those words, I mean, I always used to just say, oh, I'm passionate. And I am passionate. But I think those words really do describe NI. I mean, like, not that NE can't be that, but at least in my experience, that's how I experience my NJ-ness. But
well,
yeah.
It's kind of funny because, like, I've never actually considered myself to be a passionate person. I don't see myself as such. I could have like, I remember Kat telling me, she's like, you got passions, you got hobbies, you got all this stuff, but they're all kind of expendable to me. I like to collect resources, like to collect the potential of resources also, but it's not something I can come up on a stage and be like, so this is the one, this is the product of your life or something. Like, this is going to change.
Oh, you should do an impression of an ENFJ. Wait, you should.
I thought I was already trying.
Wait, you should, like, pretend to be a keynote speaker.
Oh no. It's not happening. I'm gonna get up there and be like, I care about all of you. No, I don't. I can't.
ENFJs, I feel like, are stereotypically that, like, keynote speaker or like motivational speaker that's like, you know what? I hope you leave here today realizing that you're worth it. And and you know what? This company needs you. I don't know. Like there's just this sort of brand of, like, I feel like it's funny whenever I actually see, like, ENFP speakers, they, like, always are extremely self-deprecating about how awkward it is that they're up there, and that's how they are charismatic about it.
We kind of like, we play on the whole, well, I'm me, so you gotta have to take it.
Yes. Oh my God.
Like, this is who I am. And the thing is, we can't give like proper advice, if that makes sense. Like, we can't just be like, you know what, you're going through this kind of problem, and this is what you're going through, because you guys can like catch on an intention like really quickly. And then like, whenever like, it's why I'm always uncomfortable when someone comes to me for advice. They're like, you must be very desperate to come to me for advice.
Oh my God. Wait, okay, so my best friend Crystal also says things like that, but whatever I'm looking for is her opinion. I'm not looking for tell me what to do or whatever. Like, I want to know her like gut instinct.
Yeah, which it's not something that we get on. Like, we don't get on that right away. I actually have to tell myself when like, for example, if Kat tells me something, it says something, or when my best friend like Jill says something, when FJs or FE doms say anything, you guys are actually wanting that conversation. You want an answer. You're wanting that back and forth.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like immediately thinking, should I have the conclusion already? Should I have an idea already prepped up and ready for you? Like, but suddenly there's like a pressure on me to suddenly like create something out of thin air.
Well, I don't know if you relate to this, but she said that she's afraid of leading me astray or like saying something, and then I take her advice, and then
because you don't want to take responsibility for it.
Yeah.
Let's just be real about it. It's just full on, full truth, and no tea, no shade. Like, we don't want to take responsibility.
You don't want someone to come back and be like, how dare you?
Well, the thing is it's because we love being like, because how NE's nature is open-ended no matter what. So it's almost by default, we can't settle on an advice either. So like, let's say I had the best advice for a person, but it's going to be buried between miles and miles of other potential bad advice as well. That it's just going to be like, and what is it, like tiresome or troublesome to just bring that one out. Like, we don't hone in on that right away. And like, again, like, for example, if you came up to me and asked for my advice or whatever, and I'd be like, well, what if it's this? Like, you're going to be like, no, Nate, that's not the point. I'm not asking you the what if of it. I want to know if you have an opinion on why this is this, or what do you think? We express that via TE, so it doesn't always come off as refined that we probably want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, yeah. So the next thing on here you have about vision.
Oh, yeah.
So
my face immediately like had that reaction of like, visions.
Yeah, and I feel like, and see, I don't know if I've said anything like this on my channel before, but I'm almost afraid to say the words that you typed out, which are that ENFPs have no vision, only short-term bursts, and would rather let the wind take them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering now, like, how many of these ENFPs online are actually ENFJs that have been mistyped, because I can sense my fear of even saying the words ENFPs have no vision, because I know that there's going to be people saying, hey, I have vision.
Actually, I agree. I'm actually going to clarify that.
Yeah.
Anyone can have a vision, right? Like, I feel like that's the TI of this, is that anyone can have a vision. I could literally just say, I want to be a coach one day, right? But the clear thing is, the big difference between us is that I'm only telling you as an idea. You're probably intentionalizing. I remember Emily Pokoki, if you're watching, shout out to you. But when you say something, you intend for it to happen no matter what. Like, it's going to happen no matter what. For us, it's, as NFPs, that's not on our minds. We like, yeah, I want to go rock climbing. But me stating that isn't the same as intending to go for it. I actually haven't been to like a rock climbing thing in like years. And I've already said that like 5 years ago that I wanted to go. Like, I have a vision I want to do at some point in my life, but I'm fascinated by the potential of that vision. It's not the same. So I feel like we need to know the path of this vision first, because as NFPs, we're just stating it.
I get really hurt whenever I tell people my visions and they doubt that they are going to happen.
Oh, yeah, get that a lot.
Because I'm like, well, I wouldn't have said that unless it was going to happen.
Yeah, and then for us, or at least for me, I would argue the opposite. I'd be like, well, I just said it. It's just words. Like they're just words floating out of my mouth. Like, are they supposed to turn into something? I don't think so.
And you know what? For any ENFJs watching, this might be good advice or something to try. I have started to share with people less about my visions because what I've realized is that I know when I have a vision, they're going to happen, but it really is draining to feel the FE that they don't believe you or that they are doubting you, and it can make you doubt yourself, and it can make you want to like
Even
be
though you're
defensive.
definitely right.
Yeah, even though you were going to do it, or it can make you be defensive or like want to be convincing why you're going to do it to them. And that's a waste of energy. Like, you don't need their self-doubt because they don't believe in themselves on you. Because if you say something, you believe in yourself and you're going to do it. And everybody else, I don't know why I just feel the need to say this to the ENFJs. Everybody else, if they are doubting your vision, it's because of all the times that they've had a vision that they haven't followed through on, and they're probably threatened by the fact that you have one, or like, what would it mean for them if you did this vision, and then they would have to sit with the idea that of all the vision that they didn't do, like what does that say about them? And so many people's opinions, a lot of times ENFJs will take them as like fact, or take them as like, oh, maybe I should have considered all of these reasons why I might not be successful. When really, it's like, ENFJ, you just need to do the thing. Like, you don't need to be wasting your time thinking about what these people think about what you're going to do. Because
I have to add something to that, actually.
Yeah.
You brought up something really good. Back to when I said that ENFPs have no vision, there is so much nuance with that sentence, because look how much thought you put in, right? Like how much thought you put in to achieving said vision. It's like you have the process lined up in your mind, you know what needs to be done. Like I can already kind of imagine ENFPs out there going like, I have a vision, I've accomplished things, I've done stuff, I've won out, and like, let's say I wanted to go to China and now I'm in China, right? I've accomplished my vision. But my question is, is it actually a vision, or did you look up with your TE like the plane ticket and you're like, oh, $300, let's go for it? Was it really a vision? You just kind of followed through on an idea. It's not a vision, right? Did that have any lasting effect on your growth, on who you are where you are in your path or your flow of time? Like I doubt it. People ask you, so why'd you go to China? Because I wanted to. Like, let's say if I wanted to ask you something a bit, like, what are your intentions with something? You could give me a full-on reason.
So the definition of vision is the ability to think about or plan the future with imagination or wisdom, and a mental image of what the future will or could be like. So I think that at least the definition we're using when we're saying that
can apply to both of
don't
us.
have vision, like, I get what you're saying. I do think that people in the English language just use the word vision very flippantly. But like the way that the way that NI has a vision is a lot more intentional. It is a bullseye on the, like, it is like a target on the dartboard. It is like, that is where I'm going.
I also would like to even bring up how the path to us achieving our visions for either one of us, because I know like no one has a monopoly, right, on a concept.
Yeah.
So while let's say an ENFP has a vision, right? Let's say I want to be this. The way to get there isn't gonna be using, NFJ tactics.
Yes.
Right? Like, for example, let's say today, like we had a goal to do this video about ENFJ versus ENFP. I'm over here with my notes, right? I've typed it up, I made it all nice and neat and all this fancy shenanigans, but like I have to like literally see it. I can't just visualize like a path in front of me conceptually and hope that does something. Like I don't see a single line. I don't see lines. I see.
You know what I'm doing? I'm imagining the audience of people that don't know the difference between ENFP and ENFJ, and I'm just trying to talk to them, and I'm just thinking in my mind, like, if there's something that might be confusing, then I all of a sudden feel an obligation. I feel bad. I feel like, oh, I need to clear this up for them. Because I can almost like imagine or like feel stress of like, oh no, something you just said might have been confusing to somebody else, or something I said might have been confusing. Like, it's like almost like I've attached my like heart to whoever's on the other side of the.
See, and like you're still on that, right? Like, and I don't. Like, that's why to me it's like so hard that I have to actually start like being more considerate, because when I let loose, I don't care. Why do I care about the implication on another person? That's like a waste of my time, right? I'm here pushing ideas. I'm here to make a person question their own thought process. I don't need you to change your mind. Like, it's just like the weirdest combo between us. I don't know.
It's almost like I'm just trying to meet them where they're at. But I don't know. It's an imaginary target still for me.
And I'm just offering an alternative. Be like, here, you like it? No? Sure, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it makes me sound way more heartless than I usually and I actually am, because I'm not.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I mean, sort of the difference, even to look in this video, is that you really care about this topic, because you didn't find your type at first before you realized you were ENFP. And you have a vested interest and a personal interest in clearing this up.
Yes.
And I mean, I do as well. But in general, as
like,
an FE
it's
Dom,
so clear that you're like what you said, like you're thinking of the audience impact, right?
Even at the beginning, I was like, oh, I imagine some of the people watching this might have just took the test and then they found us. And so I'm going to...
Like, this is going to go down. Oh, this is great. I love it. Well, I mean, I am a chaos starter, so here we are.
Yeah, I was going to, number 5, chaos production. But yeah, so ENFJs can suffer from tunnel vision, which sort of fits in with like the vision we were talking about earlier, is that we can have a very one-track mind, which can be good. Like, for example, like right now, just like the actual facts of my life is that I am working on a master's in psychology part-time. I am working on a coaching business, a YouTube channel, a podcast. I have a job, and I'm also starting a media company with my friend. And I'm doing all of this at once. And I know for, I know, don't laugh at me. I know for a fact that my life is going to be different in 3 months. Everything's going to be different. But I know I cannot live this way anymore. And so these are ideas that I've been sitting on for months. And I am just like going to start the ideas.
You can tell that I'm already giving you that face of just like, how are you alive right now? Like, I don't even, because like like, I'm barely going through with my podcast, right? Like, I'm making it happen. Like, I can't believe I made it to 13 episodes, right? It's so hard to like hone in and focus your energy and like picky with it and be like, oh, so I know what needs to be done because the flow of time dictates that this must be done, and I don't want to be conventional, so we're just gonna make it happen. And I'm just going here going like, yeah.
Let me tell you though, the thing with this tunnel vision is that it's really easy to know what my priorities are, because I know that over the next 3 months, I need to rearrange my life to the point where I can support my schooling, because school's going to start in August. And it's like, I know that I need to rearrange my life so that I like have these offerings I'm doing, because it's like, and I've spent, and it's not like I'm an SP that's just like, okay, we're going to force this through. It's like I've spent months doing market research with like individuals that I've given free coaching, I've given cheap coaching, I have done market research with people. I know exactly the way that I want to help people. And now it's ready. It's like it's come out of the oven, and like now I'm putting it out there. And it's like I have been doing a lot of like thinking or whatever. But the point of my one-track mind is that I am going to less concerts, I'm talking to less friends. I'm seeing my family less. But I know that once I have this foundation for my life, like I'm never going to have to get over this hurdle again. Like this is me. This is like set. I'm going to be like set for life. Like not like everything, but I'm going to be on the path.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I'm just
regardless.
stepping on the path. Yeah.
Which is actually a good thing that you mentioned one track mind, because by default, you aren't getting distracted. You're resisting or choosing to push away distractions.
Yeah. I put my blinders on to other ideas.
Like a horse with those blinder things that like runs.
Yeah.
Backwards. Like I only look in front of me. Yeah, that's not happening. That's not for us.
You know, for example, I haven't talked about Enneagram that much on my channel because I would rather focus on like finishing up sharing a lot of thoughts that I've already been sitting on for a while. Like while I'm like thinking about Enneagram,
yeah,
it's like I feel like I'm not ready to share yet. I also feel like I'm not ready to share astrology yet.
With you guys, it's like you guys need to understand it all thoroughly first, and then bounce in it. Like you said, like you mentioned earlier, like you're more comfortable expressing something when you've at least become some form of an expert on the topic. I
didn't even make a video until 5 years being deeply entrenched in forums.
And here I am just like talking out of my ass about like anything that comes to mind.
No, but you're right. Like you have good points though. So it's not necessarily like ENFJ should probably learn to speak up a little sooner.
Well, what's crazy is so let's say, like, put it that way, you have so much projects going on that you're making it happen, right? So much going on in real life. I have piles upon piles of drafts. Like I've created limitless universes already in my mind, and I've already projected them onto papers. But have I ever went there and pushed it? No. Like I've never actually went out and produced it because things get in the way. And that's another thing I want to bring up between ENFPs and ENFJs. We aren't necessarily good friends with reality. Like when reality's limitations kick in, it hurts us way more than we probably let on to people, because the disappointment of an ideal or an idea not making it out to the world, to the real world the way we want it to, it taxes us, it costs us a little piece of our sanity, or a little piece of our soul, because we're so attached to the idea. Whereas for you guys, I feel like you guys wouldn't mind if the idea had tweaked itself a little bit, just as long as it made it out to the real world.
Yeah, because I know it's going to.
Like you're focused on it, making it there. For us, we're already like, we like this ideal. Oh my goodness! Like I was when my friends would tell me, it's like, how do you want to propose to a girl, for example? Mm-hmm. And I had this elaborate scheme where it's like river, moonlight, candles, and they're like, what if it burns? What if she dies? Like, what if like all this thing goes wrong? And I'm just going like, but I wanted it. Like you just see me like those singles, but I wanted it to be romantic. Why is that not cool?
I've noticed that if in brainstorming sessions with like NFPs, sometimes if they say an idea and their FI is like stuck on it, and I like critique it to try and move it toward a better one, that doesn't work well. But see, my goal is to find the best one. I don't really care what it is.
Refine it into the best one. Like you're trying to fit it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I told my friend too, she's an ESFJ by anyways. Mm-hmm. Like the one I was saying, when she was planning her wedding, that was actually a really interesting thing. I brought up all the alternatives, all the possibilities, everything like this. She had a vision. Actually, granted, she did it. But she wasn't, because her FE was there or something. She wasn't too married to an idea. Like she wasn't too married to a single one. When things came up in real life that said, hey, you can't do that, she'd be like, okay, we'll try something else. Her NE was a lot more subdued than mine. So I was kind of like, really? I would have thrown a fit already. I would have been like upset that I couldn't get this. But she still got everything she wanted. It's funny though, she still got the wedding of her dreams, but she got it at a fraction of the price that like
that's awesome
for her idea. And I'm kind of like in my head like mind blown, going like, that's how we use it. Like that's how we get there. Like, oh man, how long have we been talking?
Yeah, we probably should. Can we try and make sure we get through all of these, or do you think?
Want to cut it into? We can always cut it into.
Yeah, we can always do another. Gosh, what was I gonna say?
Just ended on Like we're still on that vision.
Oh, thing. The idea. Okay, so for example, to use a real example, just like my life, right? Like once I really just commit to, okay, I'm offering mentorship sessions, which by the way, I'm offering mentorship and it's linked below. Yes. Once I like commit to sort of like that, typing sessions, and then like my digital media offerings I'm doing with my friend in school and all this, once I sort of commit to these things, it's like these are the seeds for the rest of my life. They're going to grow. They're going to change. I'm going to have all these obstacles thrown at me. I'm probably going to completely abandon certain things and change them. And I might introduce Enneagram. I might introduce, who knows? Like I might be done with Myers-Briggs, but all these things are still the seeds for where I'm going. And that's what is going to feel like comfort to me. Like once I get sort of past this hump of it, it's because it's going to feel like a foundation. And like my ENFJ friend and I, we were actually talking, or she said to me, she's like, Megan, the one I'm doing a business with, she was like, we need to realize that we are not birthing adults. We're birthing a baby. And once you birth the baby, then it's going to grow. I'm like, yeah.
Oh, dang. That's actually a pretty good way to put it. I think at least with me, I'm too impatient, I guess, is another way to put it. Like, I'm way too impatient with an idea. I just want it right away. You know, going back to relationships, can we just not date? Like, we just go, you know, like, make it happen. Like, can we just, or like, let's say a job. Can I just hand me the job? I'll make it happen. It's so much easier than having to go through this process because it's exhausting. What you mentioned about, you know, this whole taking it time, being like mindful of this growth process, and you see like there's a disgust going on. I'm like, no. No, this isn't how it works. And what's crazy, like, here's the thing though that I've noticed, like with NFPs, our growth to that, let's say I decided I wanted to go mentorship or whatever. Again, just an idea for the folks listening. It's not actually happening.
You guys should all DM him on Twitter.
You're like, no, are you gonna do something? No, of course not. But say I did, the steps I'm gonna have to take to get there is gonna be, I'm already imagining how taxing it is. And that's the thing that's already causing me to not want to do it. Because like, I'm thinking of the SI steps, the SI details, because that's what I'm, you know, that means I have to sleep on time. That means I have to know what I'm like. That means I have to know how I eat properly, because if I don't, I'm going to get hungry and I'm not going to think, and it's just going to be terrible. So I have to make sure that I'm going to be on point. But then what ENFP is on point with that?
The thing is, the reason why I've even come to those conclusions is through years of trying to figure out what I want to do. I mean, like years, as though like 7 years now. I mean, I'm going to be 25 next week. You know, whenever I was 17 and I realized that I was not going to be a famous musician, or at least I had to come up with a better career path, I have been pretty much contemplating since then, what the fuck am I going to do? Nothing sounds fun. It was like I had this existential crisis of like, all I've ever done my whole life is take performing and like music extremely seriously without even thinking about having any other hobby.
Oh, so this is coming very fresh to me. So I'm always
I don't know if I'm...
Yeah. They don't share. But I don't think people don't like, people forget it. ENFJs don't share anything until like the time decides it to be.
I could be friends with someone for a long time and then not even share details about my life because it's not what I talk about.
Like in your house right now, and I wouldn't have known. Like I wouldn't. I
don't have a dog.
Okay, because I'm kind of like, I don't know, like, and I would overshare every unsignificant detail.
So one of my absolute best friends now, my ENFJ friend, the one I'm doing a business with, I met her 2 years ago, and she's literally one of my best friends now. I asked her like 2 months ago, so where did you grow up?
Yep, sounds about right.
I have no clue.
Yeah, I'm still learning stuff about Kat, and it's been like 3 years. Yeah. You know? Like, but the thing is, like, with me, it's not my concern. Like, it's not my business. So when you guys are comfortable sharing, I'm still up for it. Like, I'm still up for it no matter what.
Nothing's a secret. It just doesn't seem relevant.
It just doesn't come up. It's not like you died. It's just that, like, when we're talking about type, it's not like you're gonna bring up, oh, by the way, I had a dog. Like, which makes sense. Like, I actually totally understand where it is, like, how it goes. It's just funny to me because it's like some facts do go over our heads and we don't think about it. We don't talk about it. It's like.
But yeah, so here's the story of my life. It's pretty much.
Now that we're on it.
Now that we're talking about it, I was 17. And so this is also even like really NI, even though I was 17. Yeah. Is that I did not even ride on the wave of, who knows, maybe I could be famous. Like I was really thinking about it, is like, you know, I don't think I want to be famous in that way. I don't think I want to be a teacher in that way. Like I was like, And then I was like, maybe I want to do music business, or maybe I want to learn how to be a producer or something for music. And then like there was like one school in the Midwest or whatever that had this program that was like music technology. And, you know, my parents only allowed me to apply to like a certain number of schools. So I like completely had all my eggs in one basket, which I think is a very NJ thing. Put all your eggs in one basket. But anyway, and then I didn't get into that school. And then I was like, existential crisis. That's actually when I learned about Myers-Briggs. I started looking up things online because I was like, I don't know who the hell I am. I don't know what I'm going to do. All I know is that I'm looking at these college paths and they all sound terrible. I just was like, get me out of here. Get me out of life. None of this looks cool or fun for me. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I guess I've been thinking for so long, like, what is it that I can offer? That like now that I have an idea, it doesn't seem scary or anything because it's not.
It's so and I like I like, and not that I haven't had plans myself. It's just that like I feel like you guys have every tendency to pick the most unconventional route. Like anyway, you know, like I don't think you guys like the thing that you had that idea. Like maybe I wanted to pursue this because you're already on that path, but you're like, I'm not gonna pursue it like how everybody else is gonna do it. We're just gonna let's try this one, let's try that one, let's see how this works.
And I think in some ways it's because a lot of life is set up in like an SI way, and that's why it doesn't work. Because the thing is that if there would have been a career that I would have really liked on the page, I would have known because it would have jumped out at me. Because that's how I am with everything. It always jumps out at me. I don't know if you relate to that or
no.
Well, like every time, like if I'm gonna date someone, it takes me like a few seconds. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna date that person, or things jump out at me. So the fact that it didn't jump out at me on the page, like my career, that was like really alarming for me.
It's funny because you mentioned the motion jumping, and I don't know if the people listening or watching are gonna think like, oh, is that NE? No, it's not. Like that's not how NE works. Because it's like NE is you sitting there looking at that girl and being like, well, maybe she's the one you're gonna marry, and then you talk to her and you're like, oh, well, probably not. But then you forget to realize that relationships are two-way, and so you actually have to kind of work and grow together. But no, who one of us think like that? Like,
I almost wonder if it's SE for like the physical environment to jump at you in that way, or like to almost like
we're just not grounded enough. I know it's the biggest thing with ENFPs. We need to ground ourselves. I know there are a few success stories out there of ENFPs who probably won't relate to anything I say, any of the struggles, because they've done it. You know, like I don't think they ever have to worry about that problem anymore.
But if they've done it, they should know the struggle.
Yeah, they should know that they've been there before and they've made it happen. Or at least the thing is, I remember having these discussions with NFPs and being like, so what steps did you take? If you were a successful NFP, you would have already known what steps you've taken, and you probably would have been telling that to me in a way that worked for you. But that's not always the case, and that's how kind of like I gauge if an NFP is actually successful or not, because they don't always they don't give me that step-by-step process that I know they're gonna know how they did it, because it was hard. We remember the significant moments in our lives where that actually came about.
What's an example, if you have one, of like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like, why is it hard, or can you elaborate a little bit more on like why a successful ENFP would know like the step-by-step of what they did?
Well, because we already know that it's already hard enough to manifest ourselves onto reality. It's hard enough that our ideas, we like to have it remain in our minds for the most part. But the biggest problem with us is that by the time we project that outwards, there's that disappointment that we're kind of afraid of. So the success story that I'm looking for is, how did they get over that disappointment? How did they get over that initial backlash that your ideas didn't actually kick in the way you wanted it to? And then how did you kind of work around it using still your NE, and then getting to the point in your life where you're like, this is actually what I needed, but it's not the same as my mind, but that's okay. Like, it's okay that it's not the same. Because we're so married to an idea that we forget that there's people on planet Earth, still listening to us. Like, there's still people out there with better ideas than us.
It's almost like reality is always going to disappoint you because it's never going to be as exciting as it is in your head.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the biggest reality check for ENFPs is to realize that we have to actually learn to love reality for what it is. For me, I've been learning to take that, actually, almost constantly reminding myself all the time about that, because if I don't, it becomes a problematic issue when it comes to presenting myself onto said reality. Because, for example, if I keep telling myself, oh, reality is boring, like everything's boring or everything's not as fun as it is, then I'm not going to have any enjoyment trying to, let's say, pursue a goal or a vision on this planet. I'm not going to do that because I don't like it. But if I use my FI engine and be like, you know what, let's motivate yourself because you actually want this, then you're actually going to get to that point because you made it personal, basically. You've made this whole thing personal, and you've also you've also spun a tether, like a thread to connect you to the ground, and you're not as against it anymore. And I feel like that's where we all have to go back to as an ENFP. We have to go back to the fact that we need to realize that we actually enjoy this thing, because if we don't, we're just going to be stuck in any land, and it's not going to do us any justice.
Interesting.
It's so not an ENFJ way.
I so don't relate. I'm so glad you said that, because I was talking earlier and you're like, what? That's exactly how I feel about what you're saying. And so hopefully I could tell based on my lack of reaction that is going to be really helpful for ENFPs.
So that's how we're going to do. Okay. All right. Makes sense.
Because I just am like, wait, what? Which means that I don't hear people talk about that, though. Like that needs,
ENFPs give up too easy. We give up too easy on that, on reality, when really we need to actually be happy. Because I've reframed the whole situation, the whole problematic situation of being an ENFP, realized reality is actually forgiving. It's not the permanent nightmare that we think it is. It's actually a forgiving place, because what you do onto reality, you can fix as long as you're still alive.
Do you know why I think you guys might view it as that way? Is I did a video once that was just a random idea I had, but it ended up being a pretty successful video, where I said, NFPs don't wait until reality bullies you into taking action. And I was kind of talking about the idea that, like, if something is your soul's path, or like your destiny, or like something that's really meant for you, like in your heart or whatever, and you keep not acting because you think that there's going to be more times or whatever, I personally believe, which a lot of NFPs resonated with this, it's just a theory, that the world is going to pretty much shake you until you figure it out what's happening. And so I feel like a lot of NFPs probably have an experience with reality as being shaken, but that's when you wait. That's when it's too late. That's not like how it normally is. It's not how it is for me.
Yeah, you're not really supposed to. I think a bunch of us now, especially the healthy ones, have learned to balance that fear by handling. I think of because for me, I naturally like to think of backups all the time. I like having a lot of that going on. I never think about backups. I also like to have things spread out, like a spreadsheet, like a map out. For example, let's say I always like to bring up my when I went on a trip to Montreal, for example, I decided that I was just gonna memorize the entire the whole train lines, all of it, because I didn't want to get lost. So I memorized the entire thing so that I didn't have, that was one thing off my mind, that I wasn't going to be distracted by it. And it's
something about ENFPs I want to say is that I feel like that action of you memorizing it all, I think it's very common for ENFPs to do something like that and then make it into a joke, and then everyone thinks you're the funny one, like on the trip, without even realizing, like, if you think about it, like, that's kind of sad. Like, why'd you do that? You know, like, there's like things like that I think ENFPs are very skilled at. I don't know, either you play it off as a joke or people react as though it's a joke.
I think we play it off as a joke because we know how kind of sad that is. Like, we actually are aware how sad that is. Like, you literally couldn't plan it out properly, so you had to rely on something like that. But at the same time, it's how we do. So it's like, for us to get any level of growth, we have to actually accept that it's not going to be easy for us. So the methods that we're going to take are probably going to sound really inefficient for everybody else, or ineffective for everybody else, but it satisfies us, the NFP in present.
I've been thinking lately, and I want to talk about this more later, and then maybe talk about it more in a video, but sorry, because my NI is like, oh, this is a new idea. I'm not sure what I think yet. But I've been thinking lately that it might actually be healthy for NFPs to embrace being delusional, which I don't know my thoughts on that. But like, the idea is that sometimes I feel like if you trust that your dream reality is possible, that's when you start to act as though it could be. And that's when you start manifesting all these sort of miracles. But if you learn to distrust your NE and you're like, oh, I need to be more realistic, which you do need to be more realistic, but it's almost like if you shame yourself for that delusion as opposed to treating it like fairy dust or like magic. I don't know if you resonate with that.
Well, I think that it comes a time where we actually have to realize that we need to refine, because not everything is possible onto reality. However, that's my NE talking. If I actually wanted to make it happen, I could. It just wouldn't be the same. And the thing is it's that I have to like not be super married to an idea. Sorry, like my parents have gotten home. I'm getting like someone.
Okay. We can wrap up.
We can probably wrap up soon. But yeah, so the like, it's not to be super married to the idea, because like we will eventually make it happen when we want it to happen. We have, like you said, we do have every equipment ready to make it do.
Yeah, and TE is a really great tool for being clever and like cutting through things.
When we need to be effective, when we need to be, we do. And it's like, at least with me, I don't know how other NFPs have done it, but like whenever I offer anything to anyone, it's always like, don't worry about me, I got it. Be like, tell me what you want, and then if I can't make it happen, then I'll tell you I can't. But if I can, I will do everything within my power to make it happen. So it's always like that kind of mentality for me. Now that's because I've spent years accumulating resources. Like, I now know like things like I just collect off like I know how to change a tire, oil change.
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Like, I had to collect it because it's like, oh, it's a resource, why not?
There's one more thing I want to say before we wrap this up, which we will do another video if you guys want. But I know I told you this earlier, is about, okay, you know how you were saying how you can spot sort of like a healthy ENFP based on that? So the contrary to that, the ENFJ, sort of how to spot a more evolved ENFJ, we were talking about earlier, is that ENFJs, they're going to have to somehow get past this sort of what people think about them, or like this sort of overindulgence in considering everybody's points of view. And like, I think that all ENFJs, to some extent, our ego or our persona is going to be very attached to wanting to seem like a super harmonious person. And in order to create true harmony, you have to sort of let go of the facade of harmony and actually meet your own needs as well. And ENFJs that have been successful and have made it are going to be able to tell you a time or where they realized that they had to meet their own needs. They had to detach a little bit from other people's perspectives. I mean, you see even like, shout out to Kat, who's like, I'm going to be on Twitter less and I'm going to focus on myself a little. Like, people that, I don't know, there's always this sort of detaching that happens in order to actually create more harmony for people.
No, it's 100% true. A lot of ENFJs are way, well, the thing is, it's even in theory, ENFJs aren't actually focused on like that kind of comfort. You know, they're not actually, like, the harmony is actually like a misnomer again, because you guys aren't interested in like, hey, let's all get along. It's more like, let's get along to get something done.
Yeah.
Like, we're going forwards here. Like, you guys are charged not necessarily by ideas, but by problems, because you guys are going to offer solutions. Like, let's say you crowdsource, but you're not crowdsourcing a problem. You're crowdsourcing a solution.
Yes, that's so true. And I guess I just think that a lot of ENFJs get really hung up in wanting to look like the good guy. And if you are still stuck in that, like, you're not growing and you aren't doing anyone a service. And I know if you are an ENFJ, chances are you really want to help people. But if you are stuck on seeming one way and are afraid to be vulnerable and actually meet your own needs and be honest with yourself that you have them, then it's kind of creating more harm than what you're even aware of. So
no, that's actually really, really good advice. I would say, just to juxtapose that with an NFP, if you want to get there and get yourself out there, knowing that we have all this stuff to go for, we have to stop being all self-deprecating and stop like telling ourselves that it's not possible. Like, we think everything's possible but us. And it's like, we have to reverse that and put that potential on ourselves, and then happen. Because when you redirect it, you can actually get your stuff done.
You it's also like know all the ways it could not be possible.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it, like, I don't know where it was. I think even Crystal mentioned it too. When you weigh in, let's say you weigh 100,000 positive possibilities, you can also, by logic, equally like weigh in another 100,000 negative possibilities. So you equalize.
Yeah.
Find your realistic decision you need to make. It's tedious, but that's an NE process. So it's like, for us, it's the only way for us to get to our middle ground that we need to. So
awesome. Do you guys have any questions about what type you are, or if you still aren't sure which one of these types you are after this, I do have a typing service where I help people figure that out. And also, if you have any questions for us, if you want us to make another video, comment below. And anything else you want to add, Nate?
Well, you can always hit me up on my show.
Yeah.
My shameless plug right there.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug that I just can't even with myself. It's the ultimate mood that I usually am in. It's a full-on babble, but it's a lot of ideas that again, like I mentioned with Annie before, like, I want you to think. I want you to question, like, your thought process in the typology community, in the type concept, whatever theory it is you're rolling in your mind. I like pushing for that. Which is funny, because people always wondered, like, if ENFPs aren't good at debates or something like that, but like, I remember
I think they are.
Like, Michelle, that's the one who mentioned it. We aren't the devil's advocate. Well, ENTPs aren't the only ones, because they're not really, because I've challenged people with logic before, and it's fun. There's a challenge for it. There are different flavors of ENFPs, obviously, and we've all reached our own paths of success at some point in our lives, but we all kind of, I don't know, like, I keep saying, every time I meet another ENFP, I know exactly how they think, because we have the same thought process. The exact pattern is literally the same. So I don't know, for other NFPs out there, you know, I love you, even though I'm hard on you guys, but it's still the same. Like, I'm not any more different, any less different. Like, I mean, what is it, that first video I made where I'm like, I'm just the same as you guys. Everyone's the same.
I think of it as just your cognitive functions is like how your brain processes, like an engine or whatever. It's not like who you are. It's not your soul. It's not your emotions. It's not your worldview. So there's so many different flavors of
and there's
people.
Systems for that too. Like, there's
systems for that too.
There's schools of thought about that.
Yeah, but the thing is that really, at the end of the day, ENFJs and ENFPs we process like completely differently. But we often tend to bump into each other in like similar roles and similar hangouts because we tend to be interested in similar things. And so in general, out of everything that I've learned with typology, I'm almost the most passionate about how being ENFJs and ENFPs understand each other. Now, I'm just now realizing this because I feel like we are both very passionate. Well, we're both very emotional in different ways. And there have probably been so many fights throughout history between ENFP and ENFJs.
Because it's an FBFI kind of versus all over again. I feel like in every community you ever enter, that almost seems to always trick the person right away. Like almost gets up the conflict right away. It's not even the thinking. Like TITE can follow each other fine.
Yeah, I feel like it's honestly, there's so many emotions involved, and ENFPs and ENFJs aren't afraid to react to things that weren't physically said. We can sort of trust our intuition, like in an argument, and like sort of react to things even if it wasn't said. And I feel like things can get fiery between ENFP and ENFJ, especially if they care about each other or if they care about a similar goal. And so I really care about explaining these differences, because I think that that's the only way we're ever going to be able to find a solution for how these types can really understand each other and meet each other halfway.
Yeah, actually, I just want to add in, there was this one time on the server that an INFJ was trying to fake it by being an ENFP. And like he got on voice and he just kind of talked about how he tried to be like, oh, I'm using NE, I'm doing all this stuff. And I couldn't shake off the vibe. I'm like, you're trying too hard.
Oh my God.
This isn't NE. And I was like, I called him out, like, you're not an NE doll, aren't you? And he goes, no, you caught me. I'm like, oh, I know you. You're from that other guy before. And he goes, oh, you caught me. I'm like, what gave it away? And I'm like, because everything you say, yeah, it's fast, it's spitballing, it's attempting to vomit NE. But I've noticed none of them are disparate, like the disparate ideas. They're all connecting to one single line. Like once you've mapped it, like I mapped it with my T, I'm like, wait a minute, you're just following one note. This isn't any.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
And I was like, and he goes, oh, dang. He's like, what? And I'm like, you're not going to do it. Like, it's going to be hard. Unless you were an ENFJ, you could fake it. You could fake your NE because your NE is pretty good. Like how, like I say with me, like my FE is actually not that bad, but I don't value it because it's not my valued function. Like it's just
NE gets in the way.
NE gets in the way. I'd rather pick NE, or actually I'd rather pick FI over FE because everything really is just a preference. Mm-hmm. So like that. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on my channel and helping clear this up. And thank you for all of you for watching. And and subscribe to Nate or find him on Twitter. And there'll be lots of wonderful links below. And have a wonderful rest of your day.
Have a good day.
Bye.